Okay, so when did playing on a travel team now start requiring a gym membership? Because now it's not just about practices and tournaments. Everything is about strength coaches, speed trainers, agility camps, private performance sessions, and year-round conditioning. So now suddenly kids aren't just playing games anymore. They're having what looks like almost like a professional training schedule year-round now.
And it's not just one sport either. You see it in soccer, basketball, baseball, football. Pretty much any travel sport has this training built around it as well. And parents are being told their kids need strength training, speed work, and private coaching just to keep up.
Yeah, so today we're going to ask a pretty important question. Is all this actual training actually helping them become a better athlete? Or are we creating an arms race just putting more pressure on kids, parents, and their wallets? Let's go ahead and try to find out. Hey, welcome back to the Buy Your Kids a House podcast series. Again, I'm Matt, this is Andrew. This is a podcast for parents trying to build wealth while raising kids in one of the most expensive times in history.
We break down real financial decisions so families can spend smarter, invest better, and hopefully set their kids up for a better future.
Yeah, so in this episode, we kind of dive into the aspect of kids and youth activities. And today we're going to really dive into the aspect of not only just travel ball, but the idea of now that they're adding now required strength training and conditioning training built into the packages of travel ball. We're trying to see, is that something that actually is benefiting the kids, making them better athletes, or is there just a way for you to kind of bleed your budget dry and really make it unaffordable and unattainable for a lot of families? And maybe there's also some better alternatives that might be options and everything that still have that well-rounded athlete without necessarily having to do this added-on package. So let's go ahead and find out about it. So first, I think we're going to kind of dive into the trend of adding on these necessary gym costs and additional coaching and facility costs that you're seeing across a lot of travel programs. And for those that haven't seen this before, you may not know what we're quite talking about, but there's a growing trend within travel ball of not only paying for the practices and the tournaments, but you're also now having these mandatory workout sessions for kids as old as 8 years old and everything, going into these sessions to do speed training, weightlifting, agility training, and it's a way now that a lot of these travel organizations are trying to increase their program. And I understand that they're trying to make it look like that they're a more professional setting and everything in there, and they're trying to make it look like, hey, if you're comparing Team A and Team B, look at us, we're providing more of a well-rounded package for training for your kids. But I just don't know if the cost of it is really worthwhile, for what you're getting and everything, especially these younger ages.
Well, right. And most families usually have some type of home gym or a gym they're already going to. So it kind of defeats the purpose of having paid that much extra just to have this packaged in together. And like you said, does the cost really outset it? We don't know. It depends on the person, I believe. If that's really what you're looking for, if you don't have something else to tie into it as well, then maybe you should look at other things. I mean, you know a lot more about this than I do, but is it that only? Or do they offer tiers? Do they offer different settings, like you can opt out to have to pay that extra? Or is it just like one lump sum?
I mean, from what I'm seeing, and again, this is a newer thing. I've only seen the last year or so really rolling out, but it looks like there's like areas that you're kind of locked in. If you want to be part of this program, you also have to opt in for this extra training session. And usually, there's a lot of gyms in the area that have these training facilities that are tacking on to the program and creating that package. And they're doing whole team training, and it's usually like speed training, agility training, some strength training. They try the idea of what you're doing on the field for whatever sport is you're doing. You have the normal practice sessions, but over here, then we're going to do the specialized training with coaches from these facilities that are trained for specifically trying to get athletes for the again, the agility, speed, strength training. But you're doing it as a home team structure. But that's now an additional night of having to get your kid to an activity facility, which is also tough for a lot of families and everything. Because again, a lot of these teams have already multiple nights a week during regular practices. They're also really strongly encouraging a lot of times to do specialized individual position training, whether, again, that's hitting and pitching, if you're already in catching, if you're a catcher for softball, baseball, soccer, if you're a goalie, a lot of specialized training and everything with that. Quarterback training if you're into football. So you're having that individualized position training from a specialized coach independent of the normal practices. Now you're a kid looking at 4, 5, 6 days a week going just for that one sport. And then added costs, like I know, for instance, a lot of this gym training, you're looking at an extra $100, $200 a month tacked into the bundle of the travel ball thing, which we've already covered in the previous episode. And if you haven't seen it before, please, go back, check it out, like and share on it. But like again, is that additional cost? I think it's going to be a lot more cost prohibitive for families to
Yeah.
do. But then you also have the fear from a family of like, you're going to try to still keep up with the Joneses. Like, well, if I'm not doing this for my kid and the other kids' parents are doing it for their kid, that their kid must be getting better because they're having this additional training and everything. And I think, especially these younger ages, 8 to 12, I don't think that's necessarily worth the cost of it
Right.
with that bundle and everything. So again, that's the trend that we're seeing that a lot of these
Mhm.
teams are doing, and I understand that they may seem like a more professional setting because if you're looking at, I want to sign up for my kid for this activity, and you see a team with a bundle that has all these extra,
Mhm.
facilities and training, it might look more enticing. But again, I don't think that it's necessary, and we're going to talk about some alternatives that can look at that, and also again trying to find also the balance of kids because a lot of times we're going to cover the fear I have again as I mentioned if you're doing something 5-6 nights a week what could happen to those kids and everything. So I think we're going to kind of dive more into the
Yeah.
potentials for that. So
All right.
yeah. So I think first off, we kind of covered what the trend is looking like and everything, but I think now we need to look at what I fear is the potential downfalls of
Mm.
doing this. And first foremost is what I mentioned before is the idea of adding 5 or 6 days a week dedicated to one sport or activity
Yeah.
and potentially year round. Like to me, that's just too much at this young of an age. You're going to have the burnout factor kick in. A lot of times, you hear kids that are amazing athletes at 8 to
Mhm.
10, 12 years old all of a sudden just quit the sport when they're older because they lost a love for the game.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you need to have that work-life balance, not only for your own job, we all talk about mental health all the time in your own work.
Mhm.
That goes for kids' activities as well. Because again, if you're that far into it, eventually you're going to hit a point where it's just going to be too much and too much of a grind and you're going to lose the love for it and you're just going to quit. And that
Mhm.
idea of potentially playing in college or professional and beyond and everything just goes right out the window because you just don't have what it takes to push through at that point anymore.
Yeah, they just don't care as much anymore because they've hit that level of burnout. And I know everyone out there probably at some point in their life have hit a burnout to that level of something. But to have something that the kid loves, keeping them active, are talented at it probably, to just hit that burnout and drop it completely, we don't want that either. We want them to be able to continue doing what they love to do, but also improve upon it as well. And I think that pushing the mandatory like training days mixed with travel ball, because travel ball, as you know, is packed, your schedule's packed
Hmm.
full already. So, and you've mentioned this a couple times already, that one more night to your 5 nights a week anyway of doing all of this isn't going to be that much beneficial to it as well. And then what happens when all of these different teams start trying to outdo each other and their arms races to the biggest and best? Those prices are just going to skyrocket because the facilities are going to get better,
Hmm.
the equipment's going to be brand new, and they're going to expect people to pay the premium prices for something that do you honestly even really need?
Yeah, and again, we don't know from the science of this yet. Is does having your kid do all this agility training at 8 years old really make an impact over the long term of it? Because I don't know, if a lot of people have seen younger kids doing youth activities. I mean, it's like herding cats out there.
Yeah.
The former technique isn't quite there yet. And if you're paying people that have multiple degrees and master degrees and sports, kinesiology and all these types of movements, sports
Mhm.
medicine and everything, to try to hone in on them for speed training at 8, 9, 10 years old, like, is there really a benefit from that versus just letting them run around the field and play?
Right.
And again, I'm a big proponent of doing multiple activities throughout a year because if you get too focused on one, like again, that can lead to a lot of potential injuries from the multiple use.
Hmm.
And if you're doing speed training and lifting just for that one use, it doesn't allow your body to become a well-rounded athletic body. Whereas
Right.
if you play multiple sports and everything throughout the year, one might be a speed thing, like let's just say soccer, where you're just running
Yeah.
around. But another one like basketball might be more where you're having the explosive movements, and those together make you a more well-rounded athlete, and
Hmm.
both of them add to each other, but also gives your body time to cool down and heal from the other aspect. Because whereas soccer, you're running around 5 miles or more in a
Yeah.
game. Basketball, more sprint, stop, and relaxing, and you're giving the long fiber muscles that time to relax, but now you're giving the short fibers the explosiveness that they
Yeah.
need, and that makes you an all-around better athlete, I feel. But also, again, you don't have that over burnout, the over
Mhm.
fatigue, potential for injury. and then also just the mental burnout and everything with it. Like so,
Yeah.
like again, and the arms race I think is a great point you brought up and everything, because again, once you open Pandora's box, it is hard to
Yeah.
close it. And now that these travel teams are including and partnering with these gyms, and don't get me wrong, I think it's a brilliant idea for these gyms to try to find travel teams to
Mhm.
partner with, because it's a great revenue stream for them. But once you have it, then it's like, well, I gotta get the next better one. I gotta get the next better
Yeah.
coach. I gotta get the next better facility, the one that has the newest machine toy to use to get these
Yeah.
kids. And again, for these younger ages, do they really need the top notch facilities and everything? Like again, you're not a professional or semi-professional athlete yet, where you need these crazy machines and all these
Mhm.
monitors and all these videos that record every little thing that these can provide and everything. Because again, at these younger ages, just getting them out and moving is the biggest factor in this.
Yeah, well, and like what you brought up about with injuries and the repetitive motions, doing just like the same motions over and over and over again, and not mixing it up and doing other sports or different activities and things like that. That's why we have like tennis elbow and joint issues and things like that throughout sports, because you're just working that one thing over constantly in a repetitive motion, and at a certain point, it's going to stop benefiting you as much. Sure, your knowledge might increase on like the sports and things like that you're doing, but it increases the risk of the injury, and that's not necessarily good either.
No, no. That again, we want healthy, happy athletes
Hmm.
to love sports or dance activities, cheer. This also applies for all those types of activities as
Yeah.
well. And we want them to be in it for their most of their childhood, potentially further than that if they're lucky
Yeah.
enough to keep going beyond that point. But the big thing is we want them to have the love for it. And if we just make it a job and a grind at such an early age,
Hmm.
and that includes also from working out. And don't get me wrong, if you want to be great at it, sure, you got to work out and do other things off the field, off the court, and
Yeah.
everything. You got to put in that other time, but have it where they're having that own internal ability to do it, not just like I now have to drive to get them to another
Hmm.
facility. Because also, again, as both of me and my wife, we both work, and juggling two kids, getting all these different things
Yeah.
is a challenge. And getting out of working time, getting them there, picking them
Hmm.
up, still doing homework, still doing dinner, still doing bath time, and all that, still having family time.
Yeah.
So having that extra time to now have to get to a gym specifically to do the specific training and everything,
Mhm.
I think it adds way more of a hiccup in your routine and everything, and causes way much more of a burden and a necessity than what the benefit is. Now, some of you might be saying like, hey, well, I want my kid to work out. I want him to do some things.
Yeah.
We're going to kind of go over what I think is some strong alternatives than looking at specifically travel organizations that have these specific gym memberships attached to them. And I think we're going to kind of cover a little bit of that, what we think is a great alternative and what you can do to make a kid a well-rounded athlete without necessarily having to tack on these type of additional costs and everything with travel ball. So let's go ahead and kind of cover that.
Let's look.
So I know some parents now are struggling with the idea of like, I still want my kid to be, great at whatever it is they're
Mhm.
doing. And we all want the best for our kids. And, if you're struggling with the idea of like, okay, well, if I'm not paying for this gym type membership and everything, what are some other alternatives and everything that we can do? We're going to kind of cover, the ideas of what we think are great alternatives.
Yeah.
Because again, the costs of going to these gyms, don't get me wrong, the professionals there, obviously they have the degrees and knowledge and everything.
Mhm.
But a lot of times when you're paying for a gym membership, the idea you're paying for is because they have the equipment there that you can't really afford at home. Is maybe a little cost prohibitive to be at home. And we're talking, big treadmills, ellipticals, bench presses, squat racks,
Mhm.
big weights, big things to lift around. Well, these younger ages, they're not using any of that yet and everything, because
Wow.
again, you're not, their bodies are still developing.
Mhm.
We're not trying to have them, squat 300 pounds or anything like that.
No.
Yeah, we're not trying
Yeah.
to have them deadlift 400 pounds.
Right.
That comes later in life and everything. So right now, we're just trying to have, the speed, the agility, the plyometrics, and everything go along with that, and that can be achieved for a relatively simple home budget aspect. In comparison,
Yeah.
we're talking about a few light kettlebells, a few
Mhm.
light medicine balls, some agility bands, some little agility hurdles and little ropes course, everything set out
Mhm.
there. Maybe a pull-up bar and everything that have a home. But all these, as I just listed off and everything, with all those together, you're looking at maybe 100, maybe $200 total. Whereas we're
Yeah.
talking about 100, $200 a month before. So,
Exactly.
and I have this all set up at home for you to do at your leisure.
Well, exactly. And that gives the kids opportunities to do it on their own time as well, instead of having to like a rigid schedule. Like maybe you just finish your homework. Okay, now I want to go out and play with the resistance bands or the kettlebells and do a few things amongst their playtime, just
Yeah.
to kids being kids and going out. So to have it accessible right there without having to go anywhere, I think, in my opinion, would work out a little bit better. And like you said, for cost wise, much less.
Yeah.
Way less money you're spending than you are to pay for that $200 a month for the travel ball like combo with the gym and everything like that. And we also don't, all these kids are doing all these different things. We want to be able to give them the opportunity to explore other things and not specialize them so early. If they like a sport, that's awesome and they really want to go for it and they're passionate about it, but have them do something else as well. Because if we talked about in the other episode as well, feel free again to go back and watch. But if you specialize too early, that's when the burnout comes, the injuries can start happening, the lack of interest, all of the different things can happen in that. So let them explore and be able to do other things instead of just pushing them for one specific constantly.
Yeah. And with that, again, if you have all these tools at home for you to use, it's much easier to fit in the busy life routine. A lot of families struggle with and everything. When you're first getting up in the morning and everything, they can do a few push-ups. They can do maybe a few, resistance band real quick and everything while they're getting ready to get for school. Maybe when they get home and everything, a few kettlebell swings, when they're going. You can fit these mini micro segments throughout their day, and then also at their own choice and leisure. And also, you can also create a reward system and everything for them. So hey, if you're doing these things, maybe they get a little more screen time, or maybe they get a little more of a treat, or maybe, hey, if we do all this by the end of the week, we can go on, go do this fun activity. But you're making where it's more fun and interactive, and they're also having the choice to do it rather than being like, I got to go to practice, I got to go to the gym, I got to do this, and you're creating that I got to moment. And that's again where a lot of that burnout can come into, because the joy of it slips out a little bit each time when it's like, well, I have to go do this and everything, instead of being, I'm choosing to do this, and I want to be active and I want to be healthy and I want to do these activities. And you can also as parents do along with them, because a lot of these times the kids are going to the facility, it's the kids doing it, not the parents. Well, again,
correct.
Make this a family time activity. Mom and dad could probably use a little bit of exercise along with it, and the kids are seeing it. You're being healthy with them. You can do these kettlebell things right along with them. The medicine ball, again, maybe you're not trying to be a D1 athlete anymore, but again, you still want to be healthy and lead that example for your kids. Well, if you're doing this right along with them, then they're going to be encouraged and everything, and maybe also keep this going for their lifetime afterwards. Which is, the end of the day, is a lot of times what we're trying to do is teach them those life skills they're going to have with them. And having a healthy lifestyle is a part of that. And I think by having those simple tools of these items that are relatively cost affordable, especially in comparison to these expensive memberships, and readily available at home, is just a lot easier, I think, to have an alternative for that, and still creating that more well-rounded athlete and happy and healthier athlete than it would be necessarily having to be the regimen of having to go to this travel program that has this gym thing attached that you have to do this. So so that's where I think that creates a better balance and everything with that.
And the whole purpose to this as well is to set your kids up for the best future that they can have, not only just financially, but mentally and physically as well. And this all ties into that, and teaching them that you don't necessarily have to keep up with the Joneses. You don't have to have the biggest and best package or go to the nicest gym, but a little bit used the right way can go just as far as well. So I think that is important to also instill into the kids how to think of things and change the mind frame as well.
And again, we mentioned a few things, between, kettlebells, medicine balls, resistance bands, the agility ropes ladder things. But if there's something that we left out that you think is something that is like a must have that's in that same affordable category, please put that in the comments and everything. Because again, I'm always looking for new, fun toys to have at home with the kids. But there's something that I missed. And, I also have some other things at home that I use. But there's something specifically, oh man, you got to try this thing because it's amazing. It's really helped me out, my kids out. And it's only cost, $40, $50, whatever. It might be something that's a great must have tool and everything to go along with those. Please, put that in the comments of, of what, helps out and everything. Cause we're all trying to create those happy, healthy, athletes and families. Again, cause that creates, again, staying within your budget, because again, this is the whole thing about this. Is we want the best for our kids and our families and ourselves, but staying within the budget so that we can reach that retirement goal and kids goal and everything. So that's all this together. We want to create. We're not over leveraging ourselves by having to feel like we have to pay for these additional add-on costs and everything. And this is let you know you don't have to. There are alternatives to this. It's okay to say no.
Yes.
It's okay to have, put up, boundaries and everything. Like for my family, this is as far as I'm willing to take it. This is what I'm willing to do.
Yeah.
This is where we are budget wise, financial wise.
Mhm.
Even if you are a higher income earner and everything, it's okay still to say no because you want to retire sooner. Like, again,
Yeah.
just because you have the money doesn't mean you have to spend the money. You don't have to live paycheck to paycheck no matter what income bracket you're at. Because again, the whole point of this, of the show is we got to learn how to build wealth the boring way.
So your kids can live the bold way.
Until next time.